Assalamu alaikum dear students. Today we are going to discuss what is literature by William Henry Hudson. Today's outline: what is literature, what makes literature in true sense, what is relationship between literature and life. First of all, we'll discuss literature and its universality. Dear students, literature is a picture, more or less true, more or less inspiring of actual life. Every country has its own literature which mirrors its life. But every literature is also an expression of emotions, of ideas and ideals which have a permanent value and which are of interest for men in every age and country. This accounts for the permanence and universality of great works of literature left behind by peoples in remote ages and countries. It is for this reason that Homer's Iliad and Virgil's Aeneid, written in ancient Greek and Rome, are still read and enjoyed. Truly speaking, literature is not of one age but of all ages, not of one country but of all countries. Dear students, now I am going to repeat one thing here. Literature is not of one age but of all ages, not of one country but of all countries. Before we are going to discuss our today's topic, there are something we have to explore: three major forms of literature. Dear students, there are three forms of literature: poetry, prose and drama. Obviously, these are the things which we have to deal in literature. Three major forms of literature, as men and women gradually learned through the passing ages to write down their thoughts, feelings, desires and opinions. They used many different ways or forms of expressing themselves. It is not very easy to distinguish these forms if we try to talk of literature in exact historical order, but we can safely say that it seems as if men used verse before prose, that is, for their literary works, as apart from their everyday speech. When, for instance, they discussed their affairs or quarreled or asked other people to supply their needs. In other words, when man was emotionally moved, he used verse. When he wanted to convey some point of view, he used prose. Basically, that's the difference between poetry and prose. Drama came at a later stage when action was added to that which so far had been written down to be read. Dramas can be written both in verse and prose. For example, Shakespeare uses both verse and prose for his plays, and the plays of both George Bernard Shaw and John Galsworthy are in prose. But critics like T.S. Eliot are of the view that drama is a form of poetry. Drama is dramatic poetry, just as there is lyric poetry or epic poetry. He regards prose drama as something unnatural and artificial. Basically, these are the critics who can say anything about their critics. Now we are going to discuss W.H. Hudson. Dear students, an introduction to the study of literature is a primary and significant work that defines literature and makes students of literature aware of how they should study literature. The very opening of first chapter, entitled as Some Ways of Studying Literature, draws boundary line between the books of literature in literary sense and books which cannot be regarded as literature and defines literature. Dear students, the modern English critic W.H. Hudson explains some ways of studying literature in this book. As I have earlier said, an introduction to the study of literature. Hudson's discussion is practical and useful to the student of literature. First of all, he explained the meaning of literature. Then he tells us how literature is produced. Now, basically, in the first chapter, as I have discussed, that some ways of studying literature. Now, as we'll see the things, we'll discuss the things. Hudson suggests some methods of studying literature. He says that historical and social study of literature is very useful. He also discusses a formula of studying literature. Then he gives us the comparative method of studying literature. Literature defies any simplistic definition. Some people call books on different subjects like history, geography, medicine, etc. as book of literature. For example, Hallam had named the book Sun Theology and Medicine as the book of literature. However, Charles Lamb had even refused to call the works of writers like Hume and Gibbon as literature. Dear students, according to W.H. Hudson, the comparative method in the historical study of literature is a practice guide to us. The study of individual author is useful. Similarly, the comparative method is important in the study of literature. Generally, when we study literature of the country or one languages or one age, we also compare it with the literature of another country or languages or age. Thus, this comparative method gives us idea about fundamental differences in literature. We can find that the great writer deal with the themes of literature like love, sorrow, death, friendship, and we find that different writers handle these themes differently at different times. Hudson says that the word literature is loosely used in everyday communication. In common sense, literature means whatever that is written or printed. It is really difficult to differentiate literature from mere documents. There are some books such as Railway Guide or Manual of Cookery which provides the information about some specific subject, whereas some books like the Paradise Lost or Sartre and Descartes appeals to our heart. Dear student, we also find that we cannot understand a writer if we do not think about the literature of other writers and other literature. The great writer of one age will influence the writer of another age. Similarly, the writer of one age and the you can say the writer of one age and one language. Thus, the comparative method of the historical study of literature will tell us how literature of England is influenced Greek and Rome. Thus, the student of literature must study the difference and compare it for the better study of literature. He says that the critic like Charles Lamb does not consider work of Hume, Gibbon and Joseph as literature, whereas the critic like Hallam consider even the books of theology or medicine as literature. So there is no concrete, you can say, criterion for making true literature different from mere writings. The 17th century England and English literature came under the influence of France and French literature. French ideas became popular in England, therefore French influence was powerful in English literature during 18th century. So we cannot understand the English literature of this age without the studying of the literature of France. The comparative method is very useful us, but we have to understand the 17th century England and English literature, and as well as 18th century the literature of France. Having confronted this difficulty, Hudson gives three criteria that make literature in true sense. These three features are, we'll discuss here the three features of as Hudson have mentioned. Number one, general human interest. This refers to the portrayal of essential human experiences. magnetizing all irrespective of time, age, and place. The work of literature does not appeal to particular mass of the people of particular era, but touches the heart of all from whatever corner of the world. As earlier I have discussed, now I'll discuss similarly Germany influenced England and English literature in the development of romantic poetry during the second part of the 18th century. You can say this example enough to prove the influence of one literature to another. So we can say that the English romantic writers were influenced by their own poets. So the English romanticism was the joint product of English genius and Germany genius. A work of literature is not gender based or time bound. It appeals to young and old, literate or illiterate. Thus, a work of literature always has subject matter of general human interest, whereas mere writing is useful to particular group of the people and is always time bound. We shall also find the writer of post-age shapes theme, nature, style, and future literature. Like men like Chaucer, Spenser, Milton, and Shakespeare influenced the poets of other age. We can understand this influence only with the study of comparative method. In short, I'll say W.H. Hudson explained importance of study of comparative method in the study of literature. This method is useful to the student of literature. Therefore, we cannot ignore the use of importance of comparative method in the historical study of literature. Now we'll discuss the element of form. Hudson is of the opinion that element of form is an essential factor that constitutes literature. Mere writing does have particular form, but this type of form does not provide artistic pleasure, whereas form of literary works pleases the hearts of readers. In poetic form, the use of rhyming schemes, meters, and figurative language makes reading pleasant. Form of literary works changes from writer to writer. Except 14 lines of sonnet. On another hand, mere writing has fixed format. Thus, a work of literature has element of form which imparts pleasure. Number third is aesthetic pleasure. The word aesthetic denotes a innovative, complex use of language and form. Number second is artistic unity. Number C is use of literary techniques, and D is lack of obvious political content. A work of literature is mostly created on the precept of art for art's sake, which means art does not have to serve any function except giving pleasure. Literature's primary function is to give pleasure, whereas the mere piece of writing aims at providing information. Aesthetic pleasure is hallmark of good literature. Thus, Hudson makes it clear that these three factors makes literature. He rightly says literature is composed of those and those books only which in the first place, by the reason of their subject matter and their mode of treating it, are of general human interest. On the basis of these criteria, he defines literature in this way. Literature is the vital record of what men have seen in life, what they have experienced of it, what they have thought and felt about these aspects of it which have the most immediate and enduring interest for all of us. It is thus fundamentally an expression of life through the medium of language. Basically, here he is going to explain his third sense which we have discussed here, the aesthetic pleasure. This is very clear and very important in the literature. Aesthetic sense should be very clear for every student of literature. So with these lines he has concluded that aesthetic sense, literature is the vital record of what men have seen in life, what they have experienced of it, what they have thought and felt about these aspects of it, which the most immediate and enduring interest for all of us. It is thus fundamentally an expression of life through the medium of language. Basically, he is telling about the everything that a man can feel and he has to express with the you can say the language. Thus, the various form of you can say literary expression fall into their place as natural result of common human impulses working themselves out under the conditions of art. And when we remember the great principle that a piece of literature appeals to us only when it calls into activity in us the same powers of sympathy and imagination as want to its making, the interest which such forms have for us is also explained. It should further be noted among the you can say our study that in all these divisions certain elements of composition are always present. There is in the first place of course the elements furnished by life itself, which constitute the raw material of any piece of literature, you can say poem, essay, drama, novel. There are the elements as we have discussed earlier, contributed by the author in his fashioning of such raw material into this form of literary art. Basically, these may be the roughly tabulated under the four heads. First, there is intellectual element. You can say intellectual element, the thought which the writer begins to bear upon his subject, and which he expresses in his work. Secondly, there is the emotional element, the feeling which his subject arounds in him, and which in the turn of desire to you can say simulate in us. Thirdly, there is the element of imagination, including its lighter form which we call fancy, which is really the facility of strong and intense vision, and by the exercise which he quickness a similar power of vision in ourselves. These elements combine furnish the substance and the life by experience. However fresh and strong may be the writer's thought, feeling and imagination in dealing with them, another factor is wanting before his work can be completed. The given matter has to be molded and you can say fashioned in accordance with the principle of order, symmetry, beauty, effectiveness. And thus we have a fourth element in literature, the technical element or the element of composition and style. Dear student, it has been necessary to touch upon these somewhat abstract you can say consideration in order to clear the way for what is to follow. We may now pass directly to matters of immediate importance of the student, whose business is not with the theory of literature but with the literature itself. If literature be at bottom an expression of life, and if be by virtue of life which it expresses that it makes its special appeal, then the ultimate secret of its interest must be sought in its essentially personal character. Literature, according to you can say Matthew Arnold, much discussed definition, is a criticism of life, but this can mean only that it is interpretation of life as life shapes itself in the mind of the interpreter. It is with the critic or you can say interpreter therefore that we have to first to do the French epigram hits the mark. Art is life seen through a temperament. For the mirror which the artist hold us up to the world about him is of necessity the mirror of his own personality. The practical bearings of this fundamental truth must be carefully noted. A great book is born for the brain and heart of its author. he has put himself into the pages. Basically, this is the style of writing something, as Hudson is using his style in his writing. So I think so. These three terms which have been discussed here. Let's move forward. This definition of literature makes relationship between literature and life clear. Hudson says, a great book grows directly out of life. In reading it, we are brought into large, close, and fresh relations with life. And in that fact lies the final explanation of its power. Basically, this is all about the you can say the writer, the author, how he is going to influence the student. Literature comes out of human life. It reflects the life of the era in which it is produced. Literature is nothing else but an important record of what men have perceived in the world. In literature, the writer artistically reports his experience of life. He gives words to those interesting incidents of life which have general human interest. Literature is an artistic expression of the best that is known and thought in the world. It is the record of man's dream and ideas, his failures and achievement, his disappointments and pleasure, his motive and patience, and his experiences and the observation. As literature is product of life, while reading it, we are brought in large, close, and fresh revelation of most enduring aspect of life. Dear student, involved this yet calling for the separate emphasis is great principle. First, you can say the foundation of all good and lasting work in literature is entire sincerity to oneself, to one's own experience of life, and to the truth of things, and one is, you can say, privileged to see it that very quietly of, you can say, sincerity which was, it will be remembered for as Carlyle, the essence of all heroic greatness, wrote Alfred D. Must. The words may seem, you can say, but how many of us could honestly say as much? The value of the, you can say, tidings brought by literature, as George Henry Lewes insists, is determined by their authenticity. We cannot demand from every man that have unusual depth of insight or exceptional experience, but we demand of him that he gives us of his best, and his best cannot be another's. We can thus see why men who speak frankly for themselves in literature have always a chance, you can say, a chance of being listened to, while others are perhaps greater a natural power, wide culture, and far from accomplished art, but of less, you can say, candor and directness of utterness, are passed over or quickly forgotten. It is always a sure sign of literary decadence or individual or age when this preference is not shown. Without sincerity, no vital work is in literature is possible, and that virtue of originality that men so strive after, you can say, it is not only genuineness. Readers of, you can say, will remember how first attempt at poetry took the shape of a South Sea romance compounded and the old mission records, and how Sandy makes with the, you can say, what to do and about basically our study of literature thus begins in a very simple and humble way. We take a great book and we try to penetrate as deeply as we can into its personal life. We make our recording of it to the fullest extent possible to us a matter of actual intercourse between its author and ourselves. We listen attentively to what he has to tell us, and we do our best to sympathetically into his thought and feelings. We note carefully how he looked at life, what he found in it, what he brought away from it. We observe how the world experienced himself, and how it is, you can say, interpreted through his personality. We become familiar with the character and outlook, his strength and weakness, his very essence. As we become familiar with the character, outlook, strength, weakness, essence of those with whom we talk in flesh, we get to know the man as the man reveals himself in what he has written. The book lives for us in all, you can say, potency of individuality. Thank you, dear students. That's all. Inshallah, see you.